The Halli Casser-Jayne Show airs Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern. The podcast's always available online at hallicasserjayne.com.
You know, I think probably Mommy was quite the character, and she would be the one that get me all dressed up to go to Sunday school, and she'd tell me, now, you don't have to act like you don't have anything. Always feel like you do. And I think I always felt that way. No matter what I had, whether it was little or I felt that it was okay.
Loretta-Lynn once famously wrote that she was proud to be a coal miner's daughter. She went on to write, "We were poor, but we had love." That love sizzles from every pore of Lynn's being, as does her inherent honesty. Her genius, as one of our great American poets, sings through every lyric she has ever written. Today on the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a look at the woman who is the queen of country music, the subject of an important new documentary premiering Friday, March 4th, 9 p.m. on your local PBS stations, Loretta Lynn, Still a Mountain Girl, as part of the 30th anniversary season of 13's American Masters series. The producers of the documentary join me at my table, Elizabeth Trojian and Elliot Halpern, as well as Lynn's feisty granddaughter, Tayla. Hi, and welcome. I am your host, Halli Casser-Jayne. But before we begin, today, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show is brought to you by Audible.com, a leading provider of spoken audio information and entertainment. Get a free audiobook and 30-day trial today by visiting my website at hallicasserjayne.com and clicking on the Audible.com icon for your free book. Hey, what's more fun than a free book? And remember, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show is always available online at hallicasserjayne.com and a host of venues, including Stitcher.com, Spreaker.com, TuneIn Radio, iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, and on the iHeart Radio Network. Inducted into more musical halls of fame than any female recording artist to date, Loretta Lynn has earned 4 Grammy Awards, Kennedy Center honors, and a Presidential Medal of Freedom, and sold more than 45 million records worldwide. Still going strong after more than 50 years, the Queen of Country Music is now the subject of a new documentary, American Masters, Loretta Lynn, Still a Mountain Girl, premiering Friday, March 4th at 9 p.m. on PBS during Women's History Month as part of the 30th anniversary season of 13's American Masters series. The broadcast premieres the same day as the release of Lynn's first new studio album in over 10 years, Full Circle. The film is the effort of co-producers Elizabeth Trojian and Elliot Halpern, and features insightful interviews with her friends and fellow musicians, including Sheryl Crow, Willie Nelson, Garth Brooks, Trisha Yearwood, Reba McEntire, Miranda Lambert, and Tayla Lynn, one of Loretta's granddaughters, herself a talent to be reckoned with, her voice riff with the musical bloodlines of her inheritance. Let's talk. All right, Elizabeth, I think a lot of us believe that thanks to Coal Miner's Daughter, we know a lot about Loretta Lynn, but actually, we really don't. We know a slice of her life, I suspect. And this is really, from my perspective, a very insightful tribute you guys have produced. And I have to ask, what did you go in thinking about Loretta? And what did you come to understand first and foremost as to what makes this legend tick?
Well, when we went in to making this film, I knew that she was this amazing songwriter, and that was something important, and I wanted to, celebrate that and celebrate this American artist. But then when, we got into it, yes, of course it was that, but really the thing I found just quite inspirational is she is a really profound poet and an incredible master of the English language. She is, the truest sense of the word. She brings this raw energy and this understanding of human nature that is on par with, Dylan or the Beatles. And that was brought home to me in a way that before, when I started, I knew that she was this, great entertainer, but I hadn't thought of her in that way. And I hope others come to see her as that great American poet as well as songwriter.
Elliot, you're Canadian?
Yes, I am.
Elizabeth, are you? No, I'm American.
I thought you were American, but how a Canadian does American country? I love it because country music is really, very American. It's our core thing. How does it go across in Canada?
It's usually popular in Canada, country music. It's on a par with the U.S. And in fact, Canadian plays a major role in Loretta's story, which is that her very first record deal at the very, very beginning of her career was a retired logging forestry guy out in British Columbia who heard her play and just put up the money out of his own pocket for her record and told her that if she ever did make a major label deal, he would just tear up the contract, which he then did.
So was that Zero Records?
Zero Records, yeah. So, and she has always come and played in Canada, like through her whole career. So there's definitely a Canadian connection to her life.
Now I want to explain who you two guys are. Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about your work, and I wonder if this is a bit of a challenge for you for this reason. I was delving into your trip, right? It's a far cry from co-creator and co-producer of the documentary series The Plastic Fantastic Brain for Discovery.
Yeah,
you're a woman of all trades. Talk to me.
I'm a woman of all trades, that's for sure. I love a good story, and that's how I approach making all my films. And it is just a great story. So whether that story is found in the science behind the neuroplasticity of the human brain, or in a history film about spies in the Second World War, or a great country legend. It's just about that for me. It's always about telling a really great yarn. And I think we did it again this time, I hope.
I thought so. Talk to me, Elliot. What about you? What's your background?
Well, I think that I started as a director, and I made investigative films. I made a couple of films about very, very scary viruses, sort of at the beginning of my career. And I guess I've had a very, very wide-ranging sort of career in terms of the kinds of stories that I'm interested in. So, yeah, Films for Their Company, we've never really focused on a specific genre of documentary. We've just really been right across the board, just as Elizabeth said, looking for really great stories.
And it shows in this, and I'll tell you why, because I think there's a very broad perspective in here that I'm not always used to seeing in documentaries, which usually take a very small chunk and they go at it, right? And I think you guys are quite capable and did a beautiful job of seeing the larger picture, which is what makes this thing so enticing. The film Coal Miner's Daughter was so epic in so many ways. I mean, Sissy Spacek and Tommy Lee Jones, Michael Apted. It was a canvas so brilliantly created that it left an indelible image on anyone's brain who saw it. I know it certainly has mine. And you probably knew that going into this project. So was that something you thought about in bringing your film to fruition, Elizabeth? How did you seek to distinguish your documentary from what we all had as our picture?
Yeah. Well, the amazing thing is that Coal Miner's Daughter really is about half of her life.
Right.
She continued to go on to make many, many more records and win many, many more awards and have grandchildren had more life, and so that idea that Coal Miner's Daughter told just a part of her life was her whole life, just lacking in that she's such an amazing American icon. I knew that the public needed to know more and deserved to hear more of her amazing story. And it keeps going on. I mean, she just put out a new record. It comes out March 4th, Full Circle. She's a prolific songwriter. She continues to tour. She truly is a living legend and a working artist.
Yeah, amazing. I want to bring Tayla Lynn into the conversation. Anybody recognize that name, Lynn? Like maybe somehow related, which she is. She's pure country, a Southern girl who grew up in the heart of Tennessee. And oh, by the way, the granddaughter of Loretta-Lynn, and the daughter of Lynn's son, Ernie, right, Tayla?
That's correct.
Who sang and played guitar in his mother's band. And Tayla, you were what? You were yourself 4 or 5 the first time you remember I love it, you call her Mima. Taking you on stage? Talk to me.
Yeah, she's so generous in that way. She's always taken her family out on the road and let us go out there. Any of us that thought that we could carry a note, if we could hold our own on stage, she'd let us go out time and time again. So I can't remember not being on stage with her, honestly.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still there. I decided to put a period at the end of it.
Okay.
That's called stop.
Okay, I got that. I'm absolutely fascinated by all of this because you not only toured with her, opening her shows, you've since forged your own musical career, and I think we want to talk about that before we go further. Your group was Stealing Angels?
I was in a trio, Stealing Angels, with John Wayne's granddaughter and a descendant of Daniel Boone, and we had a couple of songs on the radio on the top 50 Billboard charts, and then I decided to start a family, and we moved out to Seattle, and I started my solo career out there, and I've made a couple records, and I have a Seattle-based record deal right now, but we live on the Loretta-Lynn Ranch, which is on the documentary A Ton.
Unbelievable. So I have a question for you, okay?
Okay, I'm ready.
You ready? You holding on? We all have a perception of who your Mima is, but what's the biggest misconception? Or maybe she is what her press says that she is. Who is she?
Yeah, when you said the word misconception, I thought, I think they have it right. Like, when anybody asks me what she's like off stage, it feels the exact same as who she is on stage, except she's in PJs, matching little flannel pajamas, and all cozy and cuddly back in her bed, or in a big ball gown on stage. But she talks the same, she acts the same. I think when I was listening to Elizabeth and Elliot talk about what a prolific songwriter she is and what a, impact that she's had on country music. And I love listening to them talk about whatever, plastic brains. What are we even talking about? I do not know. But I felt like when I was watching the documentary that it did show such a different side of her that I have just come to know myself. That even though she wasn't schooled, she wasn't formally educated, or however you say that, Elizabeth, however you say that, she is so smart. And not everybody sees that because she's branded as the coal miner's daughter who quit school when she was 13 and got married. But you don't realize how smart she is. She has to be so wicked smart in order to write these songs and have the career that she's had and manage this wild, crazy family. She's the matriarch of our lives out here.
Yeah, I want to explore that in a bit. So hold on that thought, though, because I do think that is so important to go down that rat hole about her. Back to you, Elliot. Putting together a documentary such as Loretta-Lynn, Still a Mountain Girl, it took a lot of cooperation from a whole lot of people to pull it together. There are a lot of people in this. Was Loretta initially open to the project, or did it take some prodding to get her to jump on board and talk about herself again?
Well, she was open to the idea of a documentary on her, and I think, the real issue was talking to her and making sure that she felt comfortable with our vision for what we wanted to do. And Elizabeth and I went down to Nashville and spent time with her, and I still remember the first meeting where we sat down and ushered into her presence. It was really like I was very, very nervous, and she was so warm and easy about things, and we talked for, I don't know, must have been a half hour or more, an hour.
Yeah, more than an hour.
And so when it was over, she left, and her daughter Patsy was there with her. And I said to Patsy, I said, "So do you think that went well?" And she said, "Elliot," she said, "if my mom didn't like you," she said, "she would have told me about 5 minutes into that conversation that maybe there was something else they had to be doing right then." So, it's a pretty auspicious start to what ended up being a really collaborative relationship.
And it's funny because, Patsy, Loretta's daughter, and I have this ongoing joke with Elliot that, Loretta just loves Elliot so much, and that, they have kind of a secret crush on each other because they just get along like a house on fire. So it's really nice. And she's great. She's just a great person, and she is so warm, and she's really like that. The person you see on camera is the person that you see when the cameras are not rolling.
I haven't been fortunate enough to see her live. Is she tiny? Is she a little woman?
Yeah.
Tiny. Yeah.
She's like a spitfire. She's like very small but very big presence. Yeah,
like a huge aura, I imagine, around her. So let's go back to that very beginning, Elizabeth. Tennessee, Appalachia is so much a part of her story. Catching Butcher Holler, catching Kentucky Hurricane Mills, Tennessee. I mean, these are more than places. They're pure Americana, as I said earlier, but they're characters in her life. And I suspect you knew that going in. The film has a certain texture to it. So talk to me about building that.
We really tried to make the places that formed her into characters, because she talks about them in ways that are very colorful and characterful. I mean, she wouldn't have been the person that she became if she wasn't in those Appalachian hills, and if she hadn't come from a large family that was so loving and so interested in music. And those things, formed her so strongly that they, feel like presence in her life. And so, you want to give that to a viewer. You want to give them the sense that these were quintessential moments that really enveloped her, that and moving out to Washington and those places, had spirits. And that's what pulled her on to this greatness, of course. Those places and the remarkable do. So, we tried to show that. I think Loretta wants people to feel that way. When you go to Hurricane Mills, she's recreated Butcher Holler there out in Tennessee. So we tried to give that sense.
Country music is so interesting. It really is Americana. It is truly America's, I guess, honest art form, if you will. And it's more, though, than the grand-old-oprey and then their hollers. And I wondered what your thoughts on that, Elliot.
I think that, country music sort of speaks to Americans in a really profound way in terms of who they were and the history of the country. And I think that, in a way, Loretta's often called the queen of country music, but in a way, her music absolutely embodies, I think, the hallmarks of country music, which is a complete authenticity and honesty, writing about things and telling stories about things that everyone can relate to, experiences of everyday life. And I think that's why it's been so central to the history of the country. And it's great to see now that even though country has really moved into being almost pure pop, what's called country, that there's a lot of alt country that is really, like, a lot of young artists are really listening to people like Loretta and listening to that music and recapturing that sound, but making it modern, making the experience modern. So I think it's really cool what's happening.
It's evolutionary for sure, and I think that people don't get that it is evolutionary. I have to tell you guys a very funny story. I was in Uganda recently, and I was taking this 5-hour drive to northern Uganda to where Joseph Kony's Lord's Resistance Army was, right? And in my car, I have this young Ugandan man who's become a very dear friend of ours, and we'd given him an iPod, and he'd filled it up with music. So we're on this bumpy road, and we're on our way. The road is filled with landmines, so this is not an easy day that we're on. P.S., to make a long story short, his entire iPod is filled with American country music.
There was a New York Times article.
What?
A few months ago about how, I don't think it was in Uganda, I think it might have been Nigeria, how they're massively crazy for American country music. And they have American country music festivals.
Possessed. You hear me?
You
Possessed.
sent that to me, yes.
Do you remember, Tayla? I was telling you about it.
Yes.
Or you sent you that article.
I know. We said we should go there and start playing some shit.
You can't even imagine how insane they are about this. And I'm telling you, he would be playing this thing. He'd take off his earphones and he'd stick them on my ear. Did you ever hear this one? And did you ever meet Reba McEntire? Did you ever meet? And I'm like, what? This is funny.
That's amazing.
Isn't that great? So my point being, and it's a long way around, it's so universal. And Tayla, that's what I want to talk to you about, because the thing about country music is that it is universal. And talk to me about what your grandmother has to say about the power of country music, or maybe she doesn't see her brand of music as country music, but merely as music. Well, how does she label it?
Yeah, to be totally honest with you, I've never heard her label it before. When she talks about her music, she usually talks to me about her fans or about songwriting. We've never really, as granddaughter and grandmother, nor have I ever really heard her talk about that. Isn't that
It's
bizarre?
fascinating. Well, ask her for me.
I'm going to go ask her, Elizabeth, maybe you talk to her about that.
Yeah, send me an email. I would like to know how she
Elizabeth, let me punt it over to Elizabeth on that question.
Has she ever said anything to you, Elizabeth? Elizabeth?
Well, it's funny because, I mean, I don't think she's ever, that's so funny because she's never said, oh, country music or whatever, but everybody else, when I'm thinking about all the interviews we did, you know, people really talk about country music and country music fans, but Tayla's right. I mean, I don't remember her ever saying that to us about, you know, oh, I'm a country music artist. And I think that's because she doesn't think about herself that way. And what she writes about is so universal. You know, when she writes things, it makes you think, when you listen to it, how did she know that about me? How she wrote that for me. She had to know me because she hit the universal truth that is so pure and it's so difficult to get to. I mean, that's the thing, going back to what we had talked about before, that idea, you know, that she really is this great American poet, the ability to write such deep and profound universal truths with such clear and simple words is so difficult. I mean, anyone who's ever tried to write even a birthday card to somebody else with something meaningful in it knows that it's not easy to say what you mean simply and purely. And she really does that. And I think that it transcends so many people's thoughts on what a genre is, or it should. I mean, look at Jack White. No one would think that he was a huge country music fan, but he is. He loves Loretta, and he spent all that time listening to her because her ability to write a song is almost unmatched.
Well, you know, it's very interesting to me. In order to make the statements that she makes, and like I said, I want to hold up because we're going to talk about her in politics in a bit and some of the things that she did write. But one of the things that's interesting to me is that as simple as it is of what she writes, you know how profound her thoughts have to be in order for her to be able to chunk it down to that simplicity, which gives you insight into who she really is and the kind of mind that she has, right?
Yeah. I think it's, you know, it shows you that she has a very generous spirit, you know. She's a very compassionate human, and that, I think, is why she can find those stories and tell them.
And I have heard her say so many times on the subject how easy it is for her to do that. She says, I'm just writing about my life. I didn't know that I was writing about anything I shouldn't be writing about, that other people weren't writing about. I was just writing about life. And when I started songwriting, I would say, you know, how do you write a song? She goes, honey, all you do is write a poem and put music to it. Like, you know, that it didn't come that easily to. Like, she just can't comprehend that. And also, when Elizabeth was saying, you know, she's a great American poet, I think what makes her so special is that she would never say that about herself.
No. Oh, God, no.
That would never in a million years come out of her mouth. Even it's so true, though. And I think that's what makes her so endearing.
She's humble.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't, it's not even, she is humble, but it's not like, I guess when you say humble, I think of people who, I never think of people who are humble as being truly humble, as in they're not trying to, like, be fake.
It's a game.
Loretta's not anything but herself. You know what I mean? Like, she's not going to say that she's not talented. She'll tell you that she truly is, but she's just not fake. She's not bullshit. She's not anything but
real.
Straight up.
She's real. She's real.
Very real.
I love that, Elizabeth. Yes.
Well said. Poetry.
On that one.
No, we just got poetry is what we just got. American poetry, whatever. Elizabeth, this is for you too. We have to talk about Dew, the man who married Loretta when she was 15 years old. Fathered, 6 kids they had?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Gave her that instrument to get her playing again. Drank too much, cheated too much, too many times, but also was a very encouraging man for her to pursue her career. And she talks about giving him as much as he gave her, which I love. She's my kind of lady. Because, theirs was a passionate relationship. If not, it's sometimes violent. And she used to say, what she says in the documentary, you know, he hit her, she would hit him back twice. I mean, that's my girl.
She's like, look, she grew up in a time and place that was her own and was different, and she could stand up for herself. And, you know, she met a man who was her equal, really. I mean, they had a relationship that was deep and profound and perfect, no, but would any of us really say no to a relationship that was so important and so mattered? Yeah, maybe it played itself out on the public stage more than you'd want it to, but they found each other, and without each other, they wouldn't have made this amazing set of music. I mean, they really did it together. Yeah, he was her muse, but he was also her manager, and he was the one who had the business sense to say, okay, let's go to every radio station. Let's get out there. I'm going to put you on stage. I'm going to go, and I'm going to ask for you to get on the stage at a honky tonk. And when they say, okay, later, I'm going to say, when's later? You know, they really were a pair and a couple. And so I think
it was a match made in heaven and sometimes hell, but hell, that's passion. What's better than that?
I mean, you know, like I say, their relationship had to play out on the public stage, and so you got to see all the warts that a lot of people's relationships don't show, and So when he passed, this is the question I have, and Tayla, maybe you want to pick it up. I don't know. Anybody can answer. But when he was gone, did he take a bit of her with him? What was that period of life for her?
That's right. When he passed away is when I moved in with her, and we moved to Nashville. She couldn't stay at the ranch. She couldn't stay in their home. It was absolutely too painful for her. And, I think everybody thought she might just snap right back because he'd been sick for so long. She was the one that took care of him. I mean, she stayed off the road. She didn't work for years taking care of him. And I think we all thought she'd be kind of ready to get back out there and just get away. And she grieved. I was, 18 or 19, and she could not go back to the ranch. It was a really sad time. It was almost like she was a little girl again, and she had to rebuild herself. I remember her so vividly that first year after he passed away, and I was actually around there when he passed away too, and it was, it's, you can imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine.
40 plus years of marriage, and just, he was, 69 when he passed? I mean, he was pretty young, so yes, I think he absolutely took a piece of her.
Yeah. Yamima was going to be, 84 in April?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Where does the time go, right? But
I know, and she acts like she's 25.
My
out here
kind of
fiddling
girl.
around all the time.
She was a woman and is a woman ahead of her time. She comes out of the hollers, the second, of 8 children, I think. Poor but not hungry, she says. Music was always important. She says one side, I think her mother were quiet people, and your great-grandfather was a lad Irishman. Right? I like it. And
well, she actually says that the only thing she didn't like about Coal Miner's Daughter is that she thought that they didn't portray her mommy well. That's what she calls her mommy. She said that her mom was actually always wore red lipstick and short skirts later on in life, and that she thought that they made her seem too dull. So I don't know.
Well, here's my point. My point is, it appears that despite the humble beginnings, she had very large ideas swirling in that head of hers. And I was wondering if you could give us some insight into what she says about the world we're living in today. She's birthed 3 children by the time she was 18. I mean, does she talk to you about that? I mean, she sees her grandchildren growing up, and imagine she has great-grandchildren. What is she thinking of the world right now? We got a little kind of a crazy world, I think.
Yeah, we do. Elizabeth, go ahead.
I know it's a tough one, but I'm curious.
You know what Loretta thinks of the world right now, but I have to ask Loretta. But I think, she loves life, and she adores her family. That is something really wonderful that I learned about her while making this film, is that every one of her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren means the world to her. And she is passionate about her family. She, as Tayla said, not only is she so generous, like come on stage and perform, but she cares. I mean, Tayla, you're better to talk about this, obviously, but it just seems to me every time I'm around you guys, it's such a close-knit family and an extended family. There's, of course, other people who are part of that group, too, with the people at the ranch. And I think that it's so important to her to have a world filled with family and love.
Absolutely.
Some of the greats featured in the film, I mentioned some in the intro: Sheryl Crow, Willie Nelson, Garth Brooks, Trisha Yearwood, Reba McEntire, Miranda Lambert. How about teasing us with some of the insight into Ms. Lynn they offer? Personally, I love when Brooks and Yearwood break into song to prove.
Isn't that a magic moment?
That is really something else. Oh, my gosh. Talk to me, Elliot.
Yeah, I think that one of the cool things about the film is that there really is only one quote-unquote expert in the film, a historian, and the film's really carried by the insights offered by family members and by other great artists who are also people who know her music and collaborated with her and have deep respect for her. So I think that they provide an unusual perspective. For example, Jack White provides this, these really, really cool insights into how she actually writes songs, because he made a record with her and he has had, a lot of time to think deeply about how she actually constructs songs and how, as he puts it, these songs that are so deceptively simple on the surface really, really go deep, and that there's this serious intention below the surface. So that was cool. And hearing Garth and Tricia sort of break down how she sings or how she, performed, how she does duets was really, really fantastic. And, hearing Willie Nelson talk about what it was like to be in Nashville, start of his career when she was starting out too, and painting a picture of Nashville. I thought, all of them were first of all, so incredibly generous with their time. I mean, these are people who, are really, really, they don't give access to every filmmaker who calls them up and says, I'm making a film about somebody, I'd like to interview you. They're really incredibly busy humans, but it's a real testimony to how much they all hold Loretta Lynn in such high regard that they made it very easy for us to interview them, and they were so generous with their insights.
You are listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. My guest today, the co-producers of the new documentary, American Masters, Loretta Lynn, Still a Mountain Girl, airing March 4th, 9 p.m. Eastern, on your PBS stations, and Lynn's granddaughter, Tayla. We'll be back in a minute after this brief message. Stay with us. Hi, this is Halli Casser-Jayne. Are you enjoying the show? I hope so. And I hope that you'll tell your friends about it and help us grow our family. How can you help? That's easy. Share the link to the show with your friends or my show's player. And I would love it even more if you'd recommend they visit my website at hallicasserjayne.com. I look forward to seeing all of you there.
Well, I think one thing that I learned from your film and from some research that I did was that this is a woman who worked hard all of her life. She had a husband who was a handful, but whom she obviously adored, which we've already said. A passel of all these kids to raise a gargantuan career, right? Think about it. And you can't have it all. At least that's what we're told today. But it sounds like Loretta pretty much had it all. I hate to say it, but it's true. I'm so envious. She even had this, though. And I think that this is pretty phenomenal in the scheme of it all. She had great girlfriends. I mean, she considered Patsy Cline her mentor, but also her friend, and she had Tammy Wynette and Sissy Spacek, since the film has become her dear friend, Reba McEntire. Some say will inherit Lynn's legacy, and June Carter Cash. I mean, in this dog-eat-dog world of show business, and I want to make this point, country music is show business. Yeah. We tend to forget that because they do the country part of it so well, that these friendships with women seem rather astonishing to me. So I'm curious about what your take on her, because you as a woman then interacted with her. I wonder, and it sounds like you came out friends.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's obviously, in my opinion, it's a testament to the generosity of her spirit, but also, quite frankly, her intellect. I think the idea that women would not be friends and colleagues with other women because they are threatened is something that that people would do if they are small-minded or if they're not truly artists. And Loretta has not, it doesn't have to worry about anybody else's art. She worries about her own art and her own message. And so she can be the most generous person because she's confident, right? I mean, like Tayla said, she said, well, you just write a poem and then you put music to it. It's nothing because for her, it's in her, it's who she is. And I don't think that would ever come to her mind that, you couldn't celebrate another human and still celebrate yourself. She's much too thoughtful and intelligent to ever be like that. And that is one of the most wonderful things about being around Loretta Lynn, I have to say. She is a generous...
those are some of... I'm sorry, Elizabeth.
No, go ahead, Tayla.
I was just going to say that those are some of, as a grandmother and also as a teacher to be a performer, those are some of the biggest lessons that she's taught us, that you will always, always be kind to everybody, especially women being kind to women. So it's funny that you're talking about that because it's something like girl power, empowering other women is important to her.
Exactly.
She always says that. After I had my first son, I went out and sang with her and I danced around a lot and I had on some leather pants or something, and I came back to the back of the bus, and this is what we always do. She gets in her jammies, she gets her dinner after, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then she wants to go through the entire show and talk about what happened, and then it's time to critique me and my aunts, my dad, whoever, little constructive criticism. And she said, honey, now listen. You've had a baby and you need to not shake it so much. The women are the ones that buy the tickets and they bring their husbands to these concerts. So you have got to remember the women out there. Next night, I do the show again. I decide, okay, I'm going to stand still. I'm just going to be here. Go back, same thing. She goes, honey, you're going to have to shake it a little bit. The girls like to dance. I said, forget it. Just forget it, Nemo.
Great.
And then just one more thing that I was thinking of earlier is that you asked, is she country music? Is she what? What is her music? And the only time I've ever heard her speak of a genre, she says, I cussed on stage one time, not with her, but she heard about it. I did a show in Nashville, and I cussed, and it got back to her, which was mortifying. And she said, honey, you've got to remember that country music is about family. When you're singing country music, you have to remember it's about family.
Wow.
So those are just a couple of the just big lessons that always stick in my head now. Country music is about family. Remember to always be kind, especially to the women.
Does religion play a part in her life?
Did what?
Religion. Does religion, spirituality?
She be loving Jesus.
Okay.
Ma'am.
Yeah.
She loves her some Jesus. Right. She says that she learned to read reading the Bible.
Got it. I
mean, she's not a holy roller per se. She don't speak in tongues or nothing like that, okay? But she is how all of us kids and most of the grandkids, we love Jesus too. We live in the Bible Belt, okay? And it comes from her, She doesn't have like a judgmental God. She has a God that's gotten her through everything. And I think that is where, we built our vision of who God and Jesus are from her. So,
yeah,
totally.
I think when you're a Christian at heart, when that brings to you that sense that, you're not better than somebody else. We're all here together on this journey. And as she says, why would I not be nice to my fans?
Right. They're
the ones who come out to see me. They're the ones who buy my records, and they're people. And I think that's true, that she really holds those really strong, basic Christian values, that you need to love your neighbor and you need to, watch out for others and carry love in your heart. And she definitely does that.
Absolutely. She's a big fan of the underdog, too.
Yeah, you can definitely, you can tell that from her lyrics. Elliot, got to bring you back in. Hi, Elliot.
Yeah, come on, Elliot.
All these women yakking away, right? And where's your voice? I want you to talk to me about Loretta and Conway Twitty because, wow, right? What a partnership. 5 consecutive #1 hits, Grammy Awards. The two of them were considered the most successful duo in country music history. Honest to gosh, they just made beautiful music together. There is an interesting thing in kind of thematically, and that is she does very well partnering with men to create art. Did you think about that did you see that when you were making this?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, you could see that the relationship that she had with Conway was this sort of, incredibly productive and creative one and also, really loving. And I think that, was it Garth who, in the film, who observed that, in his opinion, they are the only exception to the rule that all great partnerships like that are between, people who are, are genuinely in a relationship together, and that they were the exception. And there was something really, really incredible about the fact that, even when you look at the old videos of them and the stuff that's in the film, there you can see the bond between them. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And I think their voices complemented each other so well. That it was really quite a gift. I mean, they're great artists that just really worked well together. I mean, they made 11 studio albums together. That's pretty incredible. And of course, Conway and Dew were good friends. So I think that Conway was just part of Loretta's family. Like I was saying, she has this sort of extended family too that she counts as strongly as her kids and her grandkids.
I want to take it back to something that I mentioned earlier, and that's the business side of the business. And I don't know how you have a conversation about her and not talk about the fact that this woman and Dew built some empire together. They are business people. I mean, if you think about where she came into all of this, she was one of the original, right, to make country music like, go bigger than life. And then you think about it. I mean, she even made Hurricane Mills pay for itself by opening it up. So there was an income from that. What, she does 3 concerts a year there? I don't know if she's still doing that, but I know that she used to. It's like the number 7 tourist attraction in Tennessee. I mean, that's like pretty smart thinking, right? But they got killed in an early publishing deal. Is that correct? I mean, where her music wasn't her own, that it was owned by Wilburn Music, and that they were involved in a lawsuit for a while. So it's not all been terrific. But then Coal Miner's Daughter, she makes the New York Times bestseller list. No country music star had ever done that before. The film, she's had a cookbook out. This woman, born of Appalachia, right, is a bit of a business genius.
Well, I think, you can almost look at her and do as that she understood and that she was a brand before people talked about, people being brands. And the way that every aspect of her life was expressed in terms of both her music, but also in terms of, Hurricane Mills, this amazing place that they created together, where, as we show in the film, that she built a replica mine that was as precise and a replica as you could get. That they brought the replica of their homestead, which was used as the set in the movie, and they had it moved to Hurricane Mills. So that they created this incredibly successful business. Out of this, the brand was all about authenticity and about almost like an America that was disappearing, that people really wanted to feel a connection to. And so in a way, I would say that by pursuing her passion, it also turned into a really great business, but the passion always came first before the brand.
And maybe that's why it works so well.
Yeah, exactly. Because people know when things are phony and when they're real, and it was always real. I mean, even the Crisco commercials. Right.
Fascinating woman. Yeah. This is something else. The writing and the singing, and I can't remember, so forgive me, which one of you tell me. When she first started out, she was singing, and then she turned to writing, and then the singing followed. So she kind of...
I mean, she used to sing, right? I mean, she's always sang. That's what Hill people do, and that's what they would do to entertain themselves. And then, she goes out to Washington. She's kind of, alone. And so singing those Hill songs makes her feel connected to her family. And then, Dew hears her great voice and her ability, and knows that there's some money to be made in a honky tonk Saturday night singer. So she does, and then as she says, she didn't really know that many songs. She knew some classic Appalachian songs, and so she just decides, well, what the heck, I'll just write them myself. Can't be that hard.
So when you talk to her, is she a singer or a songwriter first?
Songwriter.
Oh, gosh. Well, I would say a songwriter, but
that's what I said too.
Yeah, that's what you both said.
That's what I said too, Elizabeth.
I had stereo in my ears, I'll tell you, ladies. That's for sure. Okay, that's interesting. She's also groundbreaking, and we touched on this. This is what I wanted to get to. And not just, by the way, for country music. Somewhere I read or heard that she said that her music has no politics. Give me a break. I don't buy it. It seems she took an awful lot of issues pretty early on when other people wouldn't even go there. I'm just going to name them. They're not in sync with which came first, but Rated X. She decries the double standard that divorced women had to endure, and some say, by the way, still do. Wings Upon Your Horn, she tackled the subject about teenage pregnancy and losing virginity. The Pill, that surely was a taboo subject when she took it on. And Dear Uncle Sam spoke to the anguish of Vietnam. Now, how could she say she's not political, but oh my gosh, think about it. Because let me finish. After the comma, what I was going to say is she could get away with more because she was so real, so pure?
Well, because people could really follow what she had to say precisely for that reason. It wasn't like she was on a soapbox. And even when she was, writing about those issues that we would call political, she wrote about them from such a heartfelt place that I think it completely got under most people's radar.
And, I think she wrote about those things not out of a sense of being political, but because she felt that way. She felt, very compassionately and strongly about, women's right to take the pill and what it's like. I mean, she had firsthand knowledge about what it's like to be very young and have a child. And so I don't think it came from a way of like, oh, this is something that I want other people to believe in and believe in my cause. I think she was, as Tayla said before, she was just telling her own story. She was writing about her truth, and that truth, doesn't necessarily align with one thing that's political or another thing that's political. It's just her belief.
Fascinating woman. She also said she wasn't a fan of women's lib, but maybe it will help women stand for the respect they're due, that was its purpose. Tayla, growing up, I had a strong grandmother like you. Tell me what she said to you, what she said to all of her granddaughters. What's the model that she gives out on all of this, on the politics, on women's lib, on being a woman who can stand on her own? What's your takeaway from her?
Didn't talk that much about this to me until I was a little bit older, and I had always come to her about music. And finally, when I was, I guess, I'm still in my 30s, have you know. But when I was just turned 30 or something, and I'd come to her about some music stuff, and she said, baby, I think it is really about time for you to get married and settle down and have some babies so you can enjoy them. And that is the closest she's ever come to saying, you can't have it all, or it's time to do this and you shouldn't do that anymore. Elizabeth was saying earlier how much she loves her children and her grandchildren or great-grandchildren. And I think if you ever ask her if she has any regrets, it would be that she didn't get to spend that much time at home after she started going on the road. When she started touring, she was full blast all the time, and that was a lot of the reason that the kids would go out on the road with her, and you would see everybody out together, all over the country. And then when she would get here, we would all just, swarm around her just to be together. But I think, to answer your question, that's really the only time that she's ever talked much about, if you want to call it women's lib. That's just not, she doesn't go around chanting about that stuff at home. It's just, she's just not like that. I think she puts a lot of her thoughts down on paper, and when she's with us, when she's with her daughters and her granddaughters, it's more about, how are you going to raise your family, and, what are the kids doing, and why didn't you bring my grandbabies by today? Or, it's not that other stuff.
Leads by example. Mm-hmm. Sounds like she leads by example.
Yeah, she's not going to, she'll tell you what to do on stage, but she's not going to tell you how to live your life, I don't think. Although that's a lie. She will. She'll be telling me all the time what to do. She tells me what to do all the time.
Well, okay. That's a prerogative, right? She earned it. She absolutely earned it. I have to say that she has the most uncommon blue eyes. Mm-hmm. I'm always, whenever I look at pictures of her, and particularly in the documentary, whoever did her makeup, oh my God, great. Whoever did that makeup that day while they were filming.
Who did her makeup, Elizabeth?
Who did her? Because really.
Oh, Tim did her makeup in a bunch of the interviews, but the main interview, you have to ask your aunt.
It's Carrie Underwood's makeup person.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Very fancy. I remember that.
She looked fabulous. Really, 84.
She did. It was Melissa. Right? That's who it was. I don't know her last name.
Unbelievable, but they say the eyes are a mirror to the soul, and when you just keep going. You go through you look at those eyes, you just want to go right inside of her. I was great camera work, great everything on that. What's in there, Tayla? If I would say to you, what's in her? Give me a one word when you think of her, knowing her, that you think would help us understand who this woman is. That's a hard one, I know.
Yeah, one word. Are you kidding me?
Well, okay, maybe that's the answer.
Well, yeah, I think there's way too many layers for one word. I mean, the most cliche word that I can come up with is kind or love. And it's just so much more than that.
What about you, Elizabeth, after spending all that time with her?
Well, it's true. I was going to say the very first thing that came to my mind was love. And yeah, maybe that is cliche. But then the other thing that popped in my head is genius. I mean, really, it's one of those things when it's so incredible when you're around someone who is such a high-level poet and an artist. I mean, I don't mean to keep saying poet, but when you're with somebody who is a true artist and brings her game and is just amazing and talented, and you see it and it's so effortless, you really know that you're with genius. I mean, she really is. She's an incredible artist.
Elliot, would you have words there? Because I was going to go to something else with you, but if you want to put in your 2 cents on that.
No, I think that sums it up.
The new album, Full Circle. The documentary also features never-before-seen footage of Lynn in the studio with producer John Carter Cash as she records Full Circle and other new songs at the Cash Cabin Studio in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Can I just tell you, wow, that was beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
That was such a gift to be able to watch that footage. Talk to me, Elliot. How about you being there?
Well, that was actually, we shot that even before we had the film, which was sort of cool. We were actually developing the film, and we knew, that would be the only opportunity to actually film a recording session with her, because that's when the album was being made. So we really felt it was really a privilege to be part of that. And, it was just an amazing experience because her voice was so beautiful. It's the first time I'd ever heard her sing live, and to hear her in that setting and those songs, it was just, amazing. And at one point, we had her recite the lyrics for Coal Miner's Daughter, which are actually the way the film opens. The lyrics, just a spoken word of the lyrics. And she literally just read out the lyrics. And it didn't make its way onto the record, but it is such a powerful moment. It just left everybody sort of, devastated. It was amazing.
Lucky you. Family, everyone got the gift of music pretty much, Tayla. I mean, I understand that it's something to be around the family when they get in the singing mode. You've got an aunt, Crystal Gale. You've got a whole bunch of family those voices. I want to ask you a question. What's it like to sit around the Christmas dinner at that house? What is that like?
Let me tell you something. When Patsy married her current husband, Philip Russell, he was the first person that ever tried to sing at our house, and he followed us all around with the guitar trying to sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. That was a bad day.
I wish I'd seen that.
We don't. You know what? I am telling you, the questions about what she talks about and stuff at home, we sing on the road and stuff, but at home, she is watching Ghost Adventures or the History Channel or something about aliens, and we're usually talking about something very serious that Elizabeth and Elliot could chat with her about while I nap and feed the cats. And when Crystal and them come over to sing, it's usually for the road. It's usually for a concert, but I don't ever really remember a time where we're all sitting around singing at home, but on the bus that happens quite a bit. My aunt sings, both the twins, my dad, myself, my little cousin Emmy, she's on the documentary. And we do the singing on the road, except for Philip, who chases us around with a guitar.
Oh, gosh. Elizabeth, were you going to say something? I heard you laughing in the background.
I think she's horrified by putting me on this interview.
No, I'm loving every minute of it. This is great.
That's not true, Tayla. You're one of my favorite people.
Thank you.
I think, one of the great things about being at home with the Lynns is that it makes it very comfortable. And, I think one of the great things about being around them is that it really reminded me of my childhood. My parents are from the South, and my mom grew up in Missouri, and she made every single thing in my life. She made, like when I was a kid, she made my clothes and my toys, and she did all the cooking. And I come from a big family, and it really is like that. You just, you want to be around each other and crack jokes and cook up a lot of food and just spend time together. And they're very much like that. It's very comfortable and warm place.
2 more questions. One is this. She's a role model. And that's a heck of a responsibility for anybody. Earned. And maybe you take it differently when you're 84 years old than you do when you're our age, But that she is. And Tricia Yearwood calls Loretta one of her greatest influences, and Sheryl Crow does the same. And I wondered if you got a sense of of her understanding just how important she can be and is to so many. Elizabeth?
I think that she wants to be a mentor to people, that she's generous and that she wants to be that person who can share and can give advice when needed. But I think that she, sees her writing really is just a reflection of her life story. And I don't think she, I think that that's what she wants to give out. And she loves to be around other artists because she can sort of work off of that. I mean, she has such a great relationship with, both Jack White and with Elvis Costello. And, you see it in the studio too. It's amazing to see her work out a song with the musicians and with John Carter. It's really incredible. I mean, she is always on it. I mean, she's about details, and she really is about details, and that I think is what makes her such a great artist, is because I believe that the sort of foundation of all great art is to really focus on the details and to pay attention, to really know your craft and to focus on it. And she does that, and she's so generous with sharing that with others.
It's interesting to me that we all start out doing something in life when we have a reason for doing it. Maybe Loretta started out needing simply to sing or write her feelings as a young wife and mother, overwhelmed, by those early days. And then she got a little taste of fame and fortune, and then kind of that got back into her blood, and maybe she wanted more and more. Back to the fact that she has this new album, Full Circle, coming out Friday, along with the documentary, by the way, airing 9 p.m. March 4th on PBS stations. Check your local listings. I'd be curious to hear if these days she's in it simply for the pure joy of singing and writing, and said a sign that her life has become actually full circle, or if there's another way you describe what Loretta Lynn is all about today. Elliot, you first.
Well, I mean, if I can just jump in here, I think one of the things that when you see Loretta in the studio, and the reason why she's recorded this record is because she is a working artist. She has art that she wants to make, and so it's full circle in that she's come back to some of her Appalachian roots, but it really is her working. I mean, she's never stopped working. She tours, she performs, and I think this was just such a great opportunity for her to record these songs and really work out her heritage and her legacy and her new sounds with someone that she admires so much. I mean, she was incredibly close to both June Carter and Johnny Cash, and she thinks of John Carter as, one of her kids. And so I think that it was a great place for her to write and to record. And of course, John Carter, Cash is an amazing music producer. So I think that it's really just about being a working artist from what I can see.
Elliot, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that, she really does live to work. And it's very, very important to her to keep working, and it's like breathing to her. So it isn't, something special that she does occasionally. She's always writing and she records all the time. And, I think it's really cool.
Kayla, you get the last word on Mima.
Dad doesn't want to get a job.
Honey, you are a trip. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
last interview we're ever doing with you.
No, she says that as a joke on stage all the time, that she has to keep working because Dad doesn't want to, he's going to stay out on the road with her till he dies, because he lives next door to her, and it's just funny. I guess she had to be there.
Loretta Lynn has written over 160 songs and released 60 albums and has sold 45 million records worldwide. She's had 10 number one albums and 16 number one singles on the country charts. She's the most awarded woman in country music, the first woman in country music to receive a certified gold album. In 1988, she was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. She was the first female artist to receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and is an inductee into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. She was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the Kennedy Center Honors, and the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. Not bad for a coal miner's daughter. Friday, March 4th, 9 p.m. Eastern, on your PBS station. Be sure to tune in to American Masters, Loretta Lynn, Still a Mountain Girl, as part of the 30th anniversary season of 13's American Masters series. For more information, visit pbs.org/AmericanMasters. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a production of RISEC LLC. Visit HalliCasser-Jayne.com.